the second biggest monkey head I've ever seen.
I used to be an adventurer like you. Then I took an arrow in the knee.
Did I ever tell you what the definition of insanity
Hello and welcome to episode 87 of PvA Radio. I'm one of your hosts, Luke Croft. Joining me, as always, freelance gaming journalist Cody Mellowkline. Cody, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing all right. It's been a long time.
It has been. Happy New Year to both of you guys. And Cody hasn't. It's been like a month and a half because we had Seth on before the Christmas break.
I know, yeah.
So
yeah.
Also,
Good to be back.
Also joining us this week, New Year, same him, Larry Hunt. How you doing?
Yeah, that's right. I make no changes. I find that if you don't set goals for yourself, you're not disappointed when you fail to achieve them. That's from Dodgeball.
I feel like your hair is extremely long.
It is, man.
Oh,
It's getting majestic.
am I coming in hot?
Yeah.
You could just tell me. I've been moving it. Oh, I've moved everything because I'm in a new apartment. If you're watching on video, you see the new. Is that better?
It's
Yeah.
a little bit quiet, but yeah, it's better.
Oh, it's a little quiet now.
Yeah.
Okay, how's that?
Good.
Oh,
Great.
Big Boy Roy in with the tier 1 sub for 12 months, a whole year, baby.
1 year.
That is insane
Wow.
to think about.
It's
Big Boy.
the paper anniversary, right?
Is it? Is that the first
I
one?
don't know.
I don't
What's
know.
the first one?
Paper sounds fine to me.
I feel like you can't get any worse than paper. That's why it was my guess.
Well, money is made out of paper, so some might say
Larry,
that
what
it's-
is this mid-90s look you got going
I
on?
just
right now?
Luke said my hair was long, so I was just demonstrating that yes, it's quite out of control.
This intro is all over the place.
Love it.
So
Intro, what are we doing?
anyway, Big Boy Roy, thank you for the 1 year an OG to the PvA Radio / It Is Hoagie stream. Much appreciated. Yeah, I'm in a new place. It's looks like shit right now because I have boxes everywhere and have to unpack, but this will evolve over time and be awesome. I've also realized that my wall right here is an optical illusion, especially if you can't see the doorknob. So enjoy that break in your brain. But,
Yeah, that's hurting me.
but Happy New Year, folks. How was you guys' break?
It was all right. I'm ready for this pandemic to be over. That's how it was.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you stay put, Cody?
I did for part of it, and then my girlfriend and I went up to her folks' place in upstate New York. We all got tested, made sure everything was as safe as it could be. Brought the dog up, and it was just us and them, so we weren't hanging out with any of the rest of the family.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and then the second half of it just stayed put, and it was rejuvenating, and then all of that got dashed the first week of 2021. So
Yeah. So
back to square one.
So the plan was to do an episode last week to kick off the new year. But if you're in America, or even if you're not in America,
or anywhere.
Yeah, you're probably aware.
you're probably aware of what happened last week, and we just didn't feel it was an appropriate time to, there's times where it's like, I think it's acceptable and okay to need a distraction and to escape and get away. But then there's other times where it feels inappropriate,
Mm-hmm.
And last Wednesday felt like an inappropriate time to talk about things that, in the grand scheme of things, are very meaningless and irrelevant to what's going on in the world. So we skipped last week. Obviously, very real and present and apparent dangers still facing us in America as a result of what happened last week. But we wanted to get back to this, talk about some video games, have some fun. So you guys have anything to say about last week, and then we can put it to rest for at least the rest of this episode?
I'm trying to think of what even happened last week outside of the riot.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's what I was referencing. Like,
wow. Okay.
I didn't want to be the only person to speak on what happened last week before moving on to video games.
Yeah.
Um,
I've been pretty
Wow.
vocal everywhere. So, I mean, people, anyone interested in what I have to say has seen more than their share of it. But yeah, it's terrible. I don't really have much to say besides that I can't believe that so many of us are so accepting of what happened. That's the thing that I'm still kind of blows my mind.
yeah, I haven't said anything about it on social media, mostly because I've been covering it as part of my job. So I've sort of been in it. But I mean, to be succinct, what happened was the most shocking, least surprising thing. Um, it was vile, horrific, and I think everybody involved, from the president, the rioters, and the uh, members of Congress who consistently benefited from the lies that the president was spitting over the last 4 years, should be held accountable. I think the blood is on their hands.
Yeah. So, and that's where we'll leave it. I don't want to, dominate the episode with, this is a gaming podcast, but again, wanted to explain why we weren't here last week and give you guys an opportunity to say something about it. So, Big Toy Roy wants to know if I bought a house. I did not. This is an apartment where my wife and I decided to forgo purchasing a house again because the last one was not great. That's a story for another time. But so we're just gonna rent. So I'm excited to be here. Expect more streams out of me now. I've got super fast internet and coming in crisp with the HD signal. So.
The HD signal.
That's right. But this is PvA Radio. We get together every week on Wednesdays over here on twitch.tv/itishoagie to talk about video games, not politics, not a politics podcast generally. And then if you can't catch us live, you can find us on YouTube and on podcast services everywhere. If you're hanging out with us in chat, feel free to participate in the conversation. As you can tell, we are always going into chat and trying to respond. What do you guys say we jump into it with The Dive, which is our weekly segment where we take a deep dive into a single topic in new year, guys, 2021. It may feel like the old year, but it's a brand new one. And I want to talk about gaming in 2021. We kind of do this every single year. We have a little informal discussion about things that we think are going to happen in the industry. And so just kind of an open-ended question. Obviously, there's things that we know to look forward to, or to look towards in the new year. We are still into this new console generation, just kind of getting the tires going in that. The industry is continuing to change as a result of COVID, and hopefully in the year 2021 things are going to be opening back up. But I just want to open it up to you guys and say, let's pull out our crystal balls, do some wild speculation. What are you guys looking at in 2021, and what do you think we're going to see in the gaming industry in the next year?
The I know you mentioned it before, but the conversation around the next gen or current gen consoles is probably the thing most of interest to me, because we talked about this extensively, but sort of the beginning of the generation was very much like it was last generation, very much it's still a transition right now. But I think we're already starting to see titles come out that couldn't have come out and won't come out on the last generation. The thing that comes to mind, and it be just because it's the closest in the future, is The Medium, that horror game from Blooper Team. It's a game that isn't being released on last gen consoles because they said that the idea literally couldn't be done on last gen consoles. And for those who don't know, the concept is that it's sort of like a supernatural horror experience where you can flash into a spirit world and coexist in the normal world. And the game actually projects two simultaneous world states on the screen. So it's split screen, and you see the spirit world and you see the real world. and it's an interesting idea. It's going to be on Game Pass, so I'm most likely going to try it out. But things like that, where people are really pushing the technology in new directions, not just in terms of graphics, but in terms of design philosophies and gameplay, is something that I'm really. This is like an easy one, but it's just something I'm really excited for in the next year. And I'm not sure how much of it we will see. I'm thinking we might actually see more of it than we probably would have thought at the beginning of the year. But it's something that I am tentatively excited for.
Another game that the previous gen consoles just can't handle is Cyberpunk. So
No, I think this generation's pretty interesting because I think for the first time in console history, devs were able to just kind of like develop towards the specs of the upcoming generation of consoles rather than the specific architecture of it. And I think this was something that was learned especially well like in the PS3 days, where the PS3 was so hard to develop for because it was just such a unique piece of technology. And PlayStation kind of course corrected with the PS4, made it a little more developer friendly, but I still don't feel like there was great lead time in terms of when Sony was communicating what those specific specs were going to be to the developers. Whereas with this, I feel like developers have known the specs of the PS5 now for the last couple of years at least, and so they can start to build their game in the PC version of that game to those specs, and then just work at the end of it to port that over into the new system. And so I agree with you in one sense, Cody, that I do think that we're going to see developers kind of maximizing on the potential of the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X sooner than we have probably in any other generation. But I just don't think that this is going to be the year for I don't think this is going to be the year for a bunch of new titles. I think one of the trends of 2021 we're going to see is just stuff getting moved out. I think we're going to continue to see just an array of delays. I think the industry is still figuring out what remote work structures look like, what advertising cycles and marketing cycles look like inside of the COVID world, especially as like we're moving away from in-person events. Even though we've been in this for now almost a year, which is crazy to think about, like there's still so much that hasn't been figured out. And I think with what's happened with Cyberpunk, to go back to that for just a second, like I think we're going to start to see a lot of developers really gun shy to launch or a lot of publishers really gun shy to publish their stuff without 100% knowing that it's ready.
I just quickly want to tag onto that. I want to clarify. I don't think a bunch of games are going to come out this year that are next gen titles. I think some will. I think a lot of games will be announced this year that are exclusive to those consoles. As I think the move to ditch the previous generation will actually be, as you said, be faster than it has been. I do think we'll probably see some quote unquote next gen titles, but I think you're right. I think the movement in all entertainment right now is to just push as people try to figure out production lines and how that stuff works. And we might have to have a separate conversation about the shockwaves from Cyberpunk, because that's a thing I'm interested to see how it plays out this year and in the years following 2021 as well.
Yeah, we got a couple comments. Big Toy Roy said he's pretty sure Medium is coming out at the end of the month.
Is it?
Yes, it is. Yeah, I think it's the 20-something, 28th. Is it? No, 28th, not 20th. I'll look it up.
And he also said, he asked if we saw CD Projekt Red's commitment to quality video they released earlier today. And I think we're probably going to be talking about that a little bit later.
Definitely. And then my brother in the chat asked if I have a new pad. Yes, I'm now in my new apartment. So
it is coming out January 28th.
That's crazy.
On Game Pass,
that game was announced at was it Gamescom? I feel like it was announced at Gamescom.
I feel like the announcement was actually pretty recently.
Yeah, which I think Gamescom, that's September, right?
Yes.
Pretty sure, but I don't know. What about you?
They've definitely been hyping up the production on it, or press on it.
Yeah.
I thought we talked about Medium back at like E3 time because I've been
Maybe we
excited for
did.
that game for a while.
Maybe
But
we did.
anyway,
Larry, what's your
um,
crystal ball showing you for 2021?
yeah, I don't know how I'm going to kind of ramble my way through here. We might find a prediction, but I don't know how much of a prediction it is so much as a reality. Like last year, one of my things was that we were going to see xCloud or whatever it was called back then launch by the end of the year, and or whatever the time frame was. Like I was expecting to see that, or we've seen that. It's here, but both game streaming and the use of the cloud, just I'm trying to think of how to throw this all together. The tie into the internet with all of this stuff. I just see gaming being much more of an ecosystem that we're plugged into. I think we're going to just continue to see this play out where companies are more open to cross-platform and cross-play, and that's really exciting to me. And it has actually, and I could see it going the other way because for me it has actually smoothed my transition into gaming on a PC because I can still play some games with my friends, and I'm hoping we continue to see that kind of thing. But I'm also I've got kind of a negative prediction, which is I don't think this Halo game is going to do very well, and I think that it's going to spell the end of that franchise, and Microsoft's going to have to find a new flagship after this year's come to a close.
Well, let's come back to that. Let's talk about your first point there for a second, because I think we've been sitting on the cusp of like that coalescence of all of these like new cloud-based resources that are at our fingertips to be able to game and I think it's going to be a perfect marketing opportunity for a lot of these companies as the world starts to open back up. People are traveling more, and it becomes look. Let's be real with each other. People don't a lot of people don't fucking care about this pandemic right now, and they're already traveling and stuff. But for companies, it's a faux pas to go and encourage travel while through your advertising, right? But as we start to fold traveling back into our normal lives, for those of us like the three of us who are taking this pandemic seriously, these streaming companies there's that upsell of, hey, you're traveling now, but you don't have to leave your Xbox at home. xCloud, there's an advertisement for it. It's kind of a perfect opportunity to sell the service for the one exclusive thing, the one thing about it that makes it unique, which is its portability.
Yeah.
And then to your Halo point, unless Cody, did you have anything about the cloud you wanted to?
No, I think you guys are right on. I do think to Larry's earlier Halo point, this game isn't coming out in 2021.
Oh, you don't think Halo's coming out this year?
No. They pushed it to late 2021.
Yeah,
I think it's going to, and it's going to be clear that it shouldn't have. But I can't imagine them getting away with pushing it back again.
That's what we said about Cyberpunk too.
You're not wrong.
And if they didn't learn something from CD Projekt Red, I don't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think the problem becomes more than a Halo problem if it doesn't come out this year. I think that's a Microsoft problem at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Not that it's gonna not be a Microsoft problem one way or another, but if that game, I know that Xbox has other exclusive stuff that they've announced, but what is their other flagship exclusive for 2021?
Halo. That's it.
Yeah.
The whole thing is built around Halo. So, I don't think. While I agree with you, Larry, that I don't think that this is going to be I don't think this is going to be good for Halo. I think there's far too much value in the IP for them to ever just be well, that's the end of Halo.
Yeah.
I think we see some gritty reboot of Halo, God of War style, in a few years if this one comes out and has a kind of devastating launch.
Yeah. It's interesting. that statement has it's just a really interesting reflection of the change in the culture. A gritty reboot of Halo, because when Halo came out, I think it was considered kind of one of the grittier games.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't Doom or anything, but there is a lot of blue alien blood all over everything.
Yeah. But it's always been rated. It's been rated T, right?
Has it?
No, it's rated M.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Have all of them been rated M?
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, dude. They called Halo out at a CIY summer conference, and our youth leaders tried to talk us out of playing the game. And we were like, look, if aliens ever invade, we will probably try to kill them. So you're welcome.
Let's see. Halo oh, it is. Yep. Rated
Yeah.
M for
I
blood
don't know if that
violence.
definitely makes it gritty, but it definitely was like it had a brand identity. I don't know what a gritty reboot of Halo would be. Maybe something closer to ODST. That's like the most grounded version of that game world we've seen. I think and this maybe this might just be me vamping for lack of ideas, but 2021 is just such a question mark for games.
No, it is.
We struggled to think of games. I think the last time I was on the podcast, we struggled to think of games that were coming out in 2021 that had like confirmed release dates. I just think that the pall of COVID still going on is kind of makes a lot of these predictions almost pointless, because I think some of it will just be pushed back or disrupted in one way or another.
I'm gonna push a story from the slant up to the dive, because I think it ties into one of my predictions.
Yeah,
and I think it kind of also plays into what you're saying, Cody, with just the questions around like what is even going to come out in 2021. Because I think part of it is like it's COVID, obviously. I think another part of it is not wanting it, like larger publishers not wanting to become the Cyberpunk meme, not of the quality of its release, but of the having to delay it 4, 5, 6 times before it comes out. But during GDC, I'm sorry, not GDC, CES, all these acronyms, alphabet soup. During CES, both NVIDIA and AMD did their presentations, and I think NVIDIA talked about a new graphics card in their 3000 series, but neither of them really talked about their supply issues that have been going on. So for those uninitiated, NVIDIA released a new card back in September, the RTX 3080, and there's other cards in that series. And they've basically been like, you can't find them anywhere since September. And then AMD released the Radeon RX 6000 series in November. Same story. Scalpers have been buying them. They've been selling them like crazy. And stock has just been nowhere to be found. I guess my question to you guys is like, I think we've all kind of self-soothed ourselves with, which is redundant. I think we've all self-soothed with this refrain of like, after the holidays, these new consoles are going to be a lot easier to find because blah, 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 blah. When in reality, COVID is causing an issue with manufacturing across the board. And this isn't just like in the gaming space. It's everywhere. But if scalpers can just buy up every single bulk stock release of these things and then turn around and sell them at a gross profit, then I think they, and with everything being online, Best Buy hasn't been having physical stock. I think Target has had very limited physical stock. And Amazon's getting a lot of the restocks. PlayStation's doing a lot of their stuff direct. Like, I think it's a lot easier for scalpers to get a hold of physical product because they're not having to hop from store to store to store to try to buy it out. And I think until something is solved there, I don't think we're going to see any let up in the availability of these consoles as we're moving forward. And if the refrain throughout 2021, or at least the first half of 2021, continues to be like, hey, nobody can get their hands on a PS5 for anything less than $1,000, is there going to be less motivation for developers to try to release their games at the beginning of this console generation when there's stock shortages and a lack of availability? It's probably going to mar those the console releases for the next few months at least.
I could see that, because it's not only going to affect your immediate sales, but so much of how we measure the success of a game is how many sales it makes how quickly. And so it's going to affect how much your game's being talked about down the road. So it's going to affect the down the road sales as well. And that is something that really needs addressed. And I don't know, the only like option that I've seen anyone kick around that has made any sense is, and I'm not familiar with this, maybe one of you guys will be, but apparently with like limited edition sneakers, they'll do like a raffle system.
Well, and that's what Sony's actually started doing with their PlayStation Direct sales, is they start a queue, and it used to be it's like first come, first serve in the queue. The way they do it now is you get in like a pool for the queue, and then when the queue opens, they randomly select your place in the line, and you don't know what that place is, but so they're kind of doing what you're talking about, like sneakers do. One thing I don't understand is like, why are companies not just taking back orders?
Yeah.
Like I would happily be like, hey, here's $500. Just send me a PlayStation when you have one.
Yeah.
So that I don't have to keep going on this wild goose chase. I'm sure there's a reason for it that I just don't know.
Yeah, that seems like something that could solve the problem. Because I would rather do that and wait than be on eBay being like, all right, fine, I'll pay twice the price for this thing.
Or even just like constantly refreshing Walmart,
Yeah.
So I don't know. To me, I just think it's a storyline that we're going to continue to see. Like, when do you guys predict we'll have? That's a good prediction for set. When do you guys think we're going to have reliable stock, like where you can just walk into a Walmart like you can with a PlayStation 4 right now and buy a PS5?
This may be ridiculous, but I feel like we won't see that till like May.
I think it might be later. I think it's only going to get better, as you mentioned, Luke. Like, what manufacturing looks like right now is just totally. It was just totally disrupted. Not only manufacturing, but like supply chain, every aspect of delivering the thing to you. So I honestly think until vaccine is more widespread, not just here, but in the countries that are manufacturing these things, that it's not going to be something we see just on the shelf. And when that happens, I haven't been keeping up to date in terms of vaccination distribution in terms of other countries, but here we're already well behind where we should be. So I would say much later than May. I would say not until they're not much later. That I would say probably late summer, early fall.
Yeah, I'd like to amend mine because I was thinking of this as a problem that we've begun to solve, and it's really not.
No.
So yeah, I'm going to go with fall.
Yeah, I was
just in time for Halo.
See,
hey, it may be to Halo's benefit that nobody can.
Yeah.
See, I was gonna
this
say
is a second launch.
I was gonna say after. I was gonna say in 2022, like because
Maybe.
I think you start looking at, okay, let's push the timeline. Say late September is when we would expect to have like reasonable stock. Or rolling right back into a holiday season, and stock's gonna be flying off the shelves, but. What we also have to remember is, and I don't know, I think this was like a nationwide problem or a global problem, but like, so we did a giveaway at Modus over the summer. We did like during the E3 time where we gave away a Nintendo Switch console with our complete Modus library of games that are Switch. And I put together this thing. I was like, okay, that's cool. We're going to do it. push it live. I'm like, I should probably secure a Nintendo Switch so that I can send it. Nowhere. Not a single Nintendo Switch within the entire continent. I couldn't buy one online. I couldn't find one in store. And then I started noticing, I finally found like a bundle on GameStop that came available one Friday, random Friday, and I had to pay like $800 and it came with a bunch of other shit that I didn't need. But I at that point I was like, I started reading more about the console shortages, and I started noticing when I'd go to like Target or something, like no PlayStations, no, like there were no consoles that were available, and I'm talking PS4, Xbox One, and Nintendo Switch. Like, and if that shortage and that distribution problem was happening with last gen consoles, I just don't see when the let up is this year. That's not going to just lead us right back into a holiday season that is going to sell them out again.
Yeah.
So, as the world starts to open back up and things start to maybe return to normal, are there things about the COVID gaming industry that you think will persist? Like, are there things that we had before COVID that we're just never going to see again, even when the world returns to normal?
I don't know about anything like that.
In terms of gaming,
just of gaming, of the industry as a whole. Like, I think
probably more virtual events, like press event, not press events, but like instead of like kind of, I think a lot of companies have been able to do kind of more consistent, shorter presentations for their games lineups and their games. In lieu of the big kind of event blowouts. I think that will probably persist just because it's a great way to drum up press, and it's a great way to get in front of people. I think a lot of publishers and a lot of companies were already doing it prior to the pandemic, but I think it just accelerated the shift to that.
And connected to that, I feel like this year was a huge boon to streaming.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people that I know have gotten into watching Twitch streams who weren't into it before. I've been very consistently streaming all year, and I don't think that would have happened had I been going about normal life. But I think for a lot of us, it has become like a habit and a community we're plugged into. So I expect that the gains that particular section of gaming made this year are probably going to stick around. I'm interested to see if like there's more tie-in. Like in the past year, we saw games like Hyperscape where like the game was built to be attached to the stream that was watching it. And I'm curious if we'll see more of that kind of thing. And I think you'll see developers like Cody said having events, but even more than that, leveraging the streaming platforms more than they already do.
The other thing I'm actually interested in, I'm not even sure how this plays out, but I think a lot of people who probably would not have played a video game or thought of themselves as gamers got into games in 2020. I think because of the games that kind of captured the imagination, and it was a really great way to connect with people in lieu of actually going out with them or being able to see them in person. Like the Animal Crossings and the Among Us kind of craze looped in a lot of people who don't typically play video games, and so I'm curious how many of those people will continue to play games when the world starts to open up again. I'm interested in general of what the future of Among Us is, because for 2020 it was such an incredible, it was like a cultural phenomenon even outside of gaming. We talked about it becoming a platform for politicians to kind of chit chat with their fans and people who follow them. So I think the idea of who played games sort of evolved a bit in 2020, and it was a mix of the pandemic, but also some games that came out last year, Animal Crossing being the one that comes to mind. It was already scheduled for 2020, and it just sort of hit at the exact right time. But But yeah, that's something I'm just sort of interested in general. Because I think the more people playing games, the better, and the more people playing different types of games, the better. And so people who can get some sort of enjoyment out of it in a way that other people like us who sort of enjoy it in a different way is good for the industry.
In games like Among Us and Fall Guys,
Fall Guys is another one.
I think those highlight a really untapped marketing gaming. They kind of revealed that you can go after what is traditionally known as the casual gamer, but everything doesn't have to be a first-person shooter, hyper competitive. And when you do that, you can produce an affordable game that a lot of people are willing to buy because it's not a photorealistic 5-hour cinematic experience that people are going to still complain is too short. They get on, they play this fun little game, and that's all it has to be. I think we'll see more of that kind of thing showing up.
Yeah. I think I'm going to be interested to see what esports come out of the other side of all this. I think League of Legends is like going to be fun. But I think that's really like, and I think probably Call of Duty is going to be okay. But I think those are like the only safe ones that I see as like, because like the Dota scene in North America is completely decimated at this point. And some of that was before the pandemic, but the pandemic, I think, expedited a lot of the pain points there. I think Overwatch League, without the main crux of the whole idea of the Overwatch League being able to be created, I think is heavily relying on the success of Overwatch 2 when it comes out. And it'll be interesting to see. Like, I think there's some owners in the Overwatch League that are already positioning to sell their franchises and try, minimize losses on that front. And then, like, Rocket League right now is another one that I think is safe. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but like Rocket League is massive right now. Their European and North American circuits are going on, and their viewership numbers are insane. But like Fortnite, Fortnite, I think, has already announced that they're not doing the World Cup again in 2021. Maybe wrong better if they're doing it, it's going to be a virtual event. And so, like, they hired Nate Nanzer from Overwatch League to run their esports division, and while Rocket League's doing awesome, it'll be interesting to see what they do with Fortnite. So, as an esports nerd, I'll be keeping a close eye on that side of things. Any other lingering questions going into 2021?
This maybe we can reserve this for the next section of the show, but the ripple effects from Cyberpunk are still something that I'm curious about. I don't anticipate it being like a huge thing this year, but beyond 2021, I think a lot of AAA publishers may have to reconsider what release dates are, and whether release dates in general for the size and scale of the game are actually even worth it or a thing that they need. I also and kind of, I guess, sort of adjacent to that and tied to that is that I think I'll be interested to see whether any AAA developers start moving towards an early access type approach. And I say that because, Hades is the most recent example of a successful kind of early access campaign, and it's always easy to point to the successes and say, look at this. Why don't you do this? But I think more and more games have sort of been able to adopt this model and succeed through it. I do think, like, it's hard to argue that a game like Avengers probably wouldn't have benefited from being having an early access period and then sort of a proper launch. And as more and more developers continue to move into live service games like that, Destiny kind of being the most notable. It's free to play. There's a free to play version of it now, and what the future of that game they're still kind of carving out. But I'll be interested to see the state of what early access models and what release dates look like for AAA developers moving forward. Because the impact of Cyberpunk 2077's launch hit like a fucking comet. I wasn't actually able to talk about it to you guys on the show because I wasn't there that week. But it was like a fucking meteor crash in the industry. Obviously, I think it's sort of been overshadowed by some other things that have happened outside of the gaming industry. And so talking about that actually is sort of a nice reprieve. But the ongoing impact of that, not just for CD Projekt Red and the game itself, but for other developers at that scale, is going to be curious to track in 2021 and beyond.
Any lingering 2021 questions for you?
The one last thing that I kind of want to think about is we've been in this weird place for a while where, and we talk about it all the time, but nobody wants to pay more for games than we currently pay and have paid for 15 years. And the remedy to that is to turn every game into a games of service game, just about. And I feel like we've really hit the point where that bubble has to start popping. I don't know if there's enough audience to continue feeding all of these games that want to have the audience permanently plugged into them. And I wonder if that reflects on some big failures of some of these games, or if it winds up reflecting in a lot of smaller experiences being released, like Fall Guys, Among Us, or well, not even in that vein necessarily. So more games like Hades, that kind of thing. I guess I'm saying that I expect to see more diversity this year because I just don't think everyone can be a permanent home first-person shooter making extra money off of cosmetics. Mm-hmm. And so many people have been trying to. That's been the model for everyone.
Well, I think we're going to start to see more games trying to. Among Us is such a weird anomaly. Like, there's no way to replicate what happened with Among Us. This game is 2 years old. It finally starts getting like picked up by some influencers, and all of a sudden just snowballs. Fall Guys, on the other hand, was a concerted effort to create a viral success. Now, that can't happen unless the game itself is hella fun to play. But Devolver, it was a strategy of theirs to get the attention of influencers and have them stream this game to their audiences and create it was a manufactured viral success. And I think it's such a good model because it's not cheap by any means to do that, but you get this huge influx of people in the first month of your game, and you understand that 85% of those people are going to fall off after the first 30 days. But then you've got a 15% audience that's larger than anything you could have ever received from just a basic review strategy of your game. Like, we're going to send this to outlets and hope that IGN talks about it. I guess this goes to your point, Larry, of how streaming has become such a this has been an explosion point for streaming. It's also become an explosion point for the value of streamers without events, without a lot of attention on traditional gaming press. We've been seeing this move in this direction in the industry for a few years now, but I think this year just accelerated it all the more. And I think that people are going to say we want the strategy of a massive audience for the first 30 days, and then we'll just nurture whoever's left. And I feel like Among Us is starting to settle into this is going to be our long-term player base now, and they've got the new map and all that, but they're pulling nowhere near the numbers they were 2 months ago with that game. But what do they care? They're left with an audience that's bigger than any audience that they could have ever had before that success.
Haven't we already seen some games go to the $70?
I think all PlayStation 5 games are $70.
I know Demon's Souls was $70, and then Was it maybe a flash in the pan announcement when did they announce that one of the sports titles for this year is going to be a higher price, or did I make that up?
2K? I think 2K maybe.
I think it might be 2K. Yeah.
Let me see.
And if it starts happening with sports games, then I mean, obviously people are willing to spend that money if that's the only game they play every year. But
Yeah, 2K is $70.
yeah, I agree with you, Larry. I think that something has to change in that regard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But I also think it's going to create an interesting market for $30 games. When
Oh,
games
sure.
start to move to
Yeah,
$70.
definitely. I do think 2021 is going to be an interesting year for releases because, like, in lieu of games we've been able to like big AAA experiences we've been able to think of with concrete 2021 release dates, some of that stuff might be pushed, but I think to fill that, we will probably be talking a lot about smaller games or medium-sized games that we just weren't even on our radar. I'm not sure if anything will approach what Hades kind of achieved in 2020, and that's a very specific case in general. But it's the same with movies. Like in lieu of like tentpole blockbuster movies, what are we talking about from 2020? It's a lot of smaller films that kind of rose and kind of were able to get a spotlight shown on them. So I'm actually looking forward to that aspect of the unexpected question mark year that is 2021.
You can just say that you love Hubie Halloween. You don't have to talk around that point.
I mean, I wasn't going to say it, but Best Picture 2020.
Hubie Halloween.
I think looking at that industry, though, can give us an idea of some things we can expect this year. Like going back to events being done at home, because that industry has been absolutely wrecked by the COVID situation. And, now we've got every major release is going to come out on HBO Max. Well, not every, but just about every.
Warner Brothers releases, yeah.
Yeah. And Netflix is releasing one movie every week in 2021. One new movie. And like the ones they're hyping are like, it's not the typical Netflix fluff. Like we've got a billion choices, like big names in some decent looking movies. So I think we can look at that and see that, games industry stuff, they're going to be thinking the same way. How can we continue to engage people that are stuck at home? And yeah, so I guess I'm just really supporting a point you made earlier, Luke.
Mm-hmm.
The events are going to be at home this year.
Yeah. All right. Well, if we make it through 2021, we'll revisit what we've talked about here and review it at the beginning of next year. So let's move on to the Slant. The Slant is the section of the show where we take some of the most interesting pieces of gaming news from the week and we give our take on them. I feel like this story could have easily been the dive if we hadn't have already planned the 2021 discussion. But Ubisoft is making a Star Wars open world game, thus ending EA's exclusivity that they've held for 6 years, 5-6 years.
I think 7 or 8, right? Wasn't it 2013?
Oh yeah, yep, it's right there in the article.
Because they spent the first 5 of it not making any freaking games.
Yeah, that's true. That's very, very true. So this story is from Samuel Roberts over at Tech Radar. Lucasfilm Games has announced that it is making a new open world Star Wars game with publisher Ubisoft to be developed by the Division developer Ubisoft Massive, which I think is another angle to the story that's worth us talking about too. But the news was revealed by Wire and later elaborated on by Lucasfilms itself, which described this moment as a, quote, big bang, end quote, for Star Wars gaming. Let's jump down to the quote from Lucasfilms. It says, quote, "We're looking to work with best-in-class teams that can make great games across all of our IP." This is from Douglas Riley, who's the Lucasfilms Games VP. He said, quote, "We've got a team of professionals here at Lucasfilm Games who can work with the developers, shape the story, shape the creative, shape the games to make them really resonate with fans and deliver across a breadth of platforms, genres, and experiences so that all of our fans can enjoy the IPs that they know and love." All right, Larry, I'm going to kick this to you first because you're our resident Star Wars guru. What are your thoughts here?
first off, it's very exciting to. I mean, I tipped my hand earlier already. Like it's been really frustrating for EA to have such exclusive rights to this franchise because they really didn't do a lot with it. And on this side of it, it's weird to say that. Like Jedi Fallen Order was great, big deal. The first Battlefront was nothing to write home about, to be honest with you. It wasn't great, and I didn't even try the second one.
Let me stop you right there for a second, Larry. I'm sorry. I know I gave you the floor. Let's power rank the EA exclusive Star Wars titles that they've released in the last 7 years, because you're already starting to do it, and you're already about 75% of the way through.
Yes. The worst one was the mobile game that was like Hero Arena. Like it was I can't remember the name of it. Sorry that I don't know the names of these. I think Battlefront is the next to worst. We'll throw Battlefront 2 next because I don't know. I've watched it played. It doesn't look significantly different. Like it's a fun game, but it felt like playing something a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away.
Was it Battlefront 1 or 2 that was like the ignition point for a microtransaction conversation? Was it the second one?
Yeah, it was 2, because that was the one where they put like a lot of the big characters behind a paywall, right? Like wasn't Vader behind a paywall? And
yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah,
that feels like ages ago. But yes, that was the flashpoint.
Squadrons looks awesome. I think a lot of people have been having.
Yeah, a lot of people love that.
So it's next. Second place is Galaxy of Heroes, their other mobile game, which may be a weird choice, but that game is super popular, and it really is a fun turn-based combat game. And then first place is obviously Fallen Order. They were like, oh crap, if we don't start doing something with this franchise, I don't know, I shouldn't say that, but the fact of the matter is it was the only game they put out where I was like, they put a lot of effort into this, and that was I would argue that had more to do with Respawn than the broader EA. So there you go. There's my power ranking.
I don't think you can argue with that. And I think the saddest thing about that is I think the saddest thing about that is there you've got 7 years of holding one of the biggest franchise licenses in existence, if not the biggest franchise license in existence, and you put out 4 games on consoles with that license.
And 2 in the same series.
Yeah. What a squander, man. Like and through that IP you killed one of your best studios in Visceral.
Yeah.
Like let's not forget Visceral died for this license. So, and Amy Hennig was never to be heard from again. Right?
Such a missed opportunity.
You know, like this may be the most like what could have been section of gaming history with the Star Wars EA fumble.
And there were multiple games they were working on that just never saw the light of day for whatever reason. Remember the one that was like, I can't remember if you were a bounty hunter or what, but it was going to dive into the criminal underworld of Star Wars.
That was the Visceral game. Right?
Okay, yeah, that's right.
It was supposed to basically be the Mandalorian.
Yeah.
Well, and look, I think it's easy to sit here and point blame at EA for all of the mishandlings, but I have to imagine there was also a lot of frustration in working with Disney at this time. Like now we're starting to see what Disney's been up to over the last couple of years, where now they've like fleshed out this universe. And Larry, you and I have talked about this offline, but like you're concerned that Disney is not really sure like how they're going to tell all of these stories without just completely ruining the canon of Star Wars. Like, and not just in like a fandom way, but just in like a very real practical way of like, how do you tell all of these interwoven things and not just break the universe?
The Mandalorian, as an example, I'm not going to give away the specifics, but it relies so heavily on the previous franchises of the Clone Wars and Rebels. But at the same time, the season finale this season broke established rules as far as the Mandalorian leadership goes. And it's like, it's getting to where it's like, it's not just minor things. It's like hard to overlook how this doesn't make sense. We've already been over this before.
But I have to imagine that over these last 7 years, like there's been a cohesion of vision from Disney on what they want to do with Star Wars as a franchise within the movies and television series that they're making.
Was there? The
well,
movies betray that.
The movies portray that, but I think that over these last couple of years, especially, and even with the movies, though, I think that there was like good intent on the front end to like create something that kind of wrapped up that part of the universe, at least, you know. And I have to imagine it's really hard working in a video game, which is probably seen as a third tier on the tier list of media for a company like Disney. But having to like eke through the goalpost of whatever of the moving target that is what Disney expects out of the storytelling in these games, which is why we got 2 games that are absolutely like story. Well, there's a little bit of a campaign in Battlefront 2, right?
I think so, yeah.
You know, but like they're just so diluted. And then you have Fallen Order that kind of takes place in a not so connected part of the Star Wars universe. And then I don't know if Squadrons has any kind of story element to it that
it does
is heavy. Yeah. So I don't know. I think EA is it's a lot like it's easy to blame them, and I think they probably hold a lot of the blame for those squandered 7 years, but I don't think that we can just like let Disney and Lucasfilms off the hook there.
Yeah.
What I think is exciting though is that their approach to their games library, their Star Wars games library, and their other IP, because we can mention it here, but Bethesda announced that Machine Games is working on an Indiana Jones game, which in the world of games, I don't know how that doesn't become just another Uncharted. But
that's what I was going to say. I think that's why people have stayed away from Indiana Jones, is because we have a better Indiana Jones.
Uncharted. But I think it'll be interesting to see, because Star Wars for Disney has now become, let's just basically loan it out to a director who we know has a great track record and see what they do with it. And like them bombarding people with 20-something Star Wars property TV shows and movies over the next however many years is evidence that that they're going to just start throwing stuff at the wall to see what works. And granted, some of those sound interesting on paper, but the ability to give a studio the like hallowed Star Wars IP and see what they do with it, bringing what they bring as a studio in terms of strengths to that IP is great. It's the same reason why people are excited about what a Patty Jenkins Star Wars Squadron movie looks like, or people are excited about I'm trying to think, but I think maybe The Mandalorian is the other good example of what that creative team has done with it. But it'll be interesting to see. And the idea of a Ubisoft, have they given any details about what this is outside of being open world, which for me immediately sort of raises red flags in terms of what Ubisoft's track record with open world games recently is, just in terms of bloat and in terms of being checklists to play through. But Ubisoft Massive's pedigree is different in terms of what they've done, being mostly, I think most notably, obviously, as you mentioned, the Division and the live service shooter. What they can create in the world of Star Wars is kind of a question mark for me right now.
I don't know. Like, I think the world of Star Wars is so dominated by the same 6 characters, right? Like
100%. That's a big problem.
But it's such an imaginative universe where we've all kind of envisioned who we would want to be in the Star Wars universe. And I think like a game, an open world games as a service game where you're like playing as your character and able to like carve your own path. Like that's an interesting angle to me. Like I don't want to play another game that just ends Luke Skywalker or the Death Star, you know, Palpatine. Like I don't want to explore those characters anymore. Give me something unique. Give me some place where it's just a sandbox. me to create what I want to do, like I'm all about that. And if it can be done in a live service, like kind of what's the word for the shooter looter style, like I don't know, I think I'd be kind of cool with that.
My worry with it is I love Star Wars probably more than anybody, Luke. And I am sick of how everything has to be loaded with fan service. I want to see something new. And I'm worried that this open world game isn't going to do that. It's just going to be like, oh, you can fight alongside Luke again, like you have in every freaking game for the last. How long have games existed? I don't even know off the top of my head. Like, I would love to see this. Star Wars is really pushing this High Republic era right now. It's finally a new era of storytelling. And I would love to see this take place in that era.
Yeah, I part of the appeal of what we've heard about Visceral's game was that you weren't playing as a Jedi. I have genuine questions about like how with the such a strong power fantasy as playing as a Jedi in games, what that means for people. I have a genuine question of if you're not a Jedi, if you're just a bounty hunter or a scoundrel, what does that game feel like to play? And is it as fun as I think the power fantasy a lot of players have when they enter a Star Wars game is? I think it can be. I think that the Mandalorian has proven that a main character that isn't a Jedi can anchor a series. A main character that doesn't ever show their face and just interacts with a puppet for 12 episodes, 10 episodes every season. Yeah, I think I agree with you, Luke. I think that everybody likes to envision themselves within Star Wars somehow, some way. And there is an inherent fantasy of being able to explore different planets and different worlds and being able to take that in an immersive setting, I think is really appealing for people. That's what was sort of had some promise in Fallen Order for me. So I think I outside of just Ubisoft, I think opening up the IP to a bunch of different developers is great. It's the same reason that I think there is potential in Marvel doing the same thing. I would say they're probably 2 for 3 right now, and 2 of those have been done by the same studio. But anytime you give developers with a proven track record the chance to play in a sandbox like a proven IP like Star Wars or Marvel is a good thing for AAA gaming, because it at least keeps it a little fresh.
And as someone who's run a lot of Star Wars D&D campaigns with a variety of people,
I'm doing one right now.
I love the Jedi side of things. That's always been the thing I've been drawn to, and I just assumed that's what everyone wanted. But most people don't pick that route when you play a Star Wars role-playing game. So if you did have just this open sandbox type world with a variety of experiences, I think that would be appealing in a lot of different ways to people. That would be a cool experience. And they had something like that back in the day. That's what Knights of the Old Republic was, right? Am I messing the titles up? Someone in some super nerd's going to correct me. And that wasn't derogatory. It just is what it is. But it was essentially Star Wars WoW. And I hope this isn't quite that. I would rather see it feel, I know it's a little nuanced, but I'd rather see it feel more like a Destiny than like a WoW.
I don't know. I'm excited about the fact that Lucasfilms Games now has this like team, like you were saying, Cody, to kind of evaluate pitches and like pursue teams that they want to work with. And I want to see more than just like these hyper realistic first person and third person style games. Like, let's get some 2D platforms. Let's get some auto chess games. Yeah. Let's get some like trading card games.
RTS.
Yeah, like let's expand the genres that Star Wars is allowed to exist in terms of like the medium through which we play. So I'm excited to see this. One lingering question I've got for this is, what do you guys think this means for the Division? Because it doesn't sound like this is a new team created within Ubisoft Massive, but rather this was the team that worked on the Division movie. Star Wars title.
It doesn't sound like the same team could be doing both of these things.
I think the division has run its course.
Like just as a franchise itself?
Yeah, just as a franchise. I think Division 2 was actually pretty well received comparatively to the Division 1. But I think it just started. Its player base was still there was still a very strong, committed, and very small player base to it. But I think they've reached the end of their content roadmap, and so it makes sense for them to transition to something else. I don't know how much more room there is in that world. Maybe they had other ideas, but
Well, and even if they just wanted to step back and take a breather, what better way to make a fucking Star Wars game?
yeah.
All right, well let's move on. Larry, next one.
I had attached one to yours.
I'm sorry.
And it may be totally irrelevant to the topic, but I thought it was worth bringing up. This comes from Forbes. Apex Legends Respawn deletes job listing for new Adventure Forever IP by Paul Tassi. And essentially there was a job, a job post looking for someone to help develop a game where you would be adventuring forever. And Respawn, they've had Titanfall, they've had Apex. I think Respawn is probably one of the most liked developers right now. They've had a whole series of great gaming experiences. But the reason I attached it to yours was there was some all we can do is speculate. What is this Adventure Forever type game? But there were some people wondering if Respawn was working on a Star Wars experience like that. And the assumption was, I'm gonna wildly speculate for a moment.
Wild speculation.
The assumption was that when this job advertisement got noticed, they took it down just because it had been noticed publicly. But with it coming down within a week of this game announcement, I wonder if Lucasfilm just decided to go a different direction with who was doing what, because an open world Star Wars game sounds very similar to an Adventure Forever type of game. So, but I don't know. Maybe it's something totally unrelated.
I don't know. You're way more into Apex than I am, Larry, but haven't they been doing they've been doing a lot more focus on kind of fleshing out that universe and the characters that are within it and stuff? Like,
that's true.
Big Toy Roy, which I'll never get used to saying. He's going to be Big Boy Roy forever. But he says new MMO. And I'm wondering if there is something they're going to, I mean, you've got like Titanfall and Apex Legends in that same universe. Like, what's to say they're just not going to like continue to expand that universe into another genre?
That makes a lot of sense, dude. And especially the story of that universe is one of humanity expanding out into the galaxy and a fight for resources and who's in charge of what planets and are we still beholden to this alliance over here? So I could see that. And some of the stories happening in Apex could easily be leveraged into that broader universe.
Oh, that's right. Big Boy Roy is eventually going back to Big Boy Roy. So he said I don't have to get used to calling him.
Unless I change my name to Big Boy Roy and then it's taken.
All right. Now let's move on to your next story there, Larry.
All right. This headline sounds like a bigger deal than it is. I just want to be clear about that. Making sure I'm at the right story. Yeah. My stream marker button. Sorry, I didn't plan ahead.
It's all right, man.
343.
Welcome to PV Clickbait Radio. So we're going to talk about this next story.
This article comes from GameSpot. Halo Infinite designer leaves to join Darksider Studio after contract ends, by Eddie Makich. Colby Payne has left 343 Industries to take a position at Texas-based studio Gunfire Games. And that really is the story. But, I do want to be clear, because it has been my tendency to read negativity into what's going on with Halo, that this is not one of those stories. Colby Payne's contract was just up. He had completed his job, and he made that clear on social media, and it was time for him to move on to something else. I share it, so I share it not to be like, what does this tell us about the future of Halo, like I usually do, but just to say, what does this tell us about the future of Gunfire Games? Because I think for all the complaints people do have about Halo as a franchise over the last several years, level design is and how the campaign plays. Like, I don't think that's really been one of them. Maybe how the story is told, but as far as like playing through the story, that's always been an enjoyable experience. So I'm kind of looking forward to see what Colby Payne does. Whether we're and then there's what franchise is he going to be working on? Are we going to see some more Darksiders? Is he going to be involved in the new Remnant stuff? So
Yeah. Well, and I think it is worth noting, like, the games industry is an industry like other industries where people change jobs and they go different places and they find new opportunities. And it doesn't always mean that the ship is burning at sea. Like, when somebody moves on. And so I think the first like visceral response you have when you see a headline like this is like, what the hell's going on with Halo Infinite? And the thing is, there is probably some shit going on at Halo Infinite, but this is not a result of that. So, all right. Let's see. Switch over to this real quick. Well, we already talked about the NVIDIA AMD story, so we don't need to rehash that. So let's move on, Larry.
I think it's my turn again.
Your next story.
All right, so this is an article from PC Gamer. Riot and Bungie team up to sue Cheatmaker by Andy Chog. And again, the story is the headline. What's interesting, so this isn't the first time that a game developer has sued a cheat maker, but this may be the first time that two developers have teamed up together. And they went after Gator Cheats for the things they were producing for Destiny and for Valorant. And in the loss, go ahead.
Was Gator Cheats the company that you used to be able to like send your memory card to? I think you guys know who I'm talking about.
I don't know anything about this.
No.
I'll look it up. There was a company back in the day that like you could send your memory card to them, and they would like upload cheats for games on it, send it back to you. But
That sounds mad suspicious.
Yeah, right.
This was before we cared anything about data security.
And to be fair, back then, all they were going to get off your memory card was game data.
That's true.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, one unique thing about this lawsuit is there's kind of an argument that that Gator Cheats producing cheats for these games was more nefarious than it typically is, because these have become free to play games. And so it's even more damaging to their model if people feel like it's unfair and they quit playing. And as someone who enjoys competitive multiplayer online experiences, I love this. I hope they destroy Gator Cheats. I hope they scorch the earth.
All right, I had this all wrong. It was Game Shark.
Oh yeah,
and they would send you Game Shark.
Yeah, they'd send you the disc that had the cheats on it for you to like be able to look at cheat guides. That's what it was. Sorry, I had that all kinds of backwards.
You could also buy like they sold like a device that you could plug your cartridges into to do cheats for all kinds of consoles.
That's what I'm thinking of then. I knew it was something that like did something to the hardware. Didn't manipulate it, but it was like, I think Larry just heard a ghost. Did somebody say something to you in your headphones, Larry?
I think I heard a gunshot, which is not supposed to happen where I live. Like, you can't shoot in town. So,
well, that's concerning. Well, let me know if you hear sirens.
It could have just been fireworks, which is also not supposed to happen in town, but it's less concerning. Both things do happen in town, although they're not supposed to.
Big Toy Roy says it's news to me that people pay for cheats. Yeah. It's a huge market actually. Like, and I think that as we see streaming growing, we're going to continue to see companies like this making money hand over fist to make people look better than they actually are. You know, how many stories did we see over the last year of like people playing on boosted accounts or getting caught aimbotting on stream, things like
performance enhancers.
Yeah.
Last night, this was a very satisfying experience. We raided somebody after my Apex stream who was playing Apex and got to see her just get absolutely destroyed. But then she starts spectating, and this dude is like just pulling the trigger with a flatline and like shooting people across the map on Olympus. and he's clearly using cheats to get his account leveled up to where you get into ranked play. But we also found out that this streamer was friends with one of the dudes that handles Apex cheaters. And so she sent the clip to him, and we got to watch in real time as he popped in the stream. Was like, "Yep, got the clip. The dude's banned." So it was very satisfying.
Yeah. And look, the cheat stuff. It's not just like a direct financial loss for these companies, and it's not just a direct financial gain for companies that are selling these cheats. There's an indirect loss from people who just stop playing your game because it's riddled with cheaters. Like Apex on PC for a long time had almost no anti-cheat attached to it when it first launched, and aimbots were all over the place. I remember that was like a huge meme in the Apex community that you wanted to play on console, not PC, because the PC was just cheaters.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think especially for games, for live service and multiplayer games, like the obvious and specifically free to play games in that case, like the games are really only as good as or only as strong as the community that's part of it. And if the community loses trust in not the developer in this case, but the system itself, the game itself, that can obviously destroy the community and ultimately obviously cost the company money in the long term. So it's actually sort of interesting to see it like written in legal language, which is just so straightforward. It's just so cold and sort of straightforward, because you can see where they're basically doing the math for you from A to B to C to show you how it really does negatively impact them, as you said, Luke, not just financially, but in terms of the public trust, which is a big thing for a free-to-play game.
Yep. All right. Next story on the list, Larry. It's just the Larry show today.
That's right. I'm stealing this show from you. So
I just want to point out real quick, Larry. You always have the most obscure websites in the news section. Like, I've never heard of this Game Watcher. I'm sure it's a great site, but I've just never heard of it.
We've been over this. Sorry, on the tag. I've got the reputation for being the dude that never has news. I only have stories from 10 years ago. So I found an obscure subreddit to find gaming news that you guys weren't finding.
Fair enough.
Because usually you guys beat me to the show notes. This year it's not been a problem. Cody's got his new job and Luke's in the wrong time zone, and I've got a head start. So yeah, this is from Game Watcher. Their logo looks pretty cool. I've never read anything from this site till today. In any case, the article is Consumer Protection Agency investigating CD Projekt Red following Cyberpunk 2077 launch issues by Bogdan Robert Matez, I think.
I think it's just really cool that all of Bogdan Robert's mates got together to write this article.
All right, anyway. Essentially, Poland's Office of Competition and Consumer Protection is investigating CD Projekt Red for the what?
I understand that the abbreviation is because it's abbreviating the Polish, but the fact that it says Poland's Office of Competition and Consumer Protection, UOKIK, it's like I don't know. It was comedic to me for some reason.
Well, the launch of Cyberpunk was not great, as we've already talked about today, and I'll probably make another joke next week. But they're looking into how they handled it post-launch, how they handled refunds, and how they
handled it pre-launch in terms of just being transparent about the state of the game on last generation consoles.
Yeah. UOKIK spokesperson Malgorzata Silak, I'm not sure I'm saying that right at all, said, quote, "We asked the entrepreneur to explain the problems with the game and the actions taken by him. This is what's in quick break, end quote. this has been run through Google Translate. That's how they got this for this site. I'm sorry, but it's what we got to work with. Quote, we will check how the manufacturer is working on introducing corrections or solving difficulties that prevent the game from playing on different consoles, but also how it intends to act in relation to people who have filed complaints and are dissatisfied with the purchase due to the inability to play the game on their equipment, despite the manufacturer's previous assurances, end quote. So there it is at the end, Cody, what you're talking about. They made it sound like this was in much better shape than it was.
And this isn't the first lawsuit, right, that's been lodged against them? I don't know if you guys talked about this, or maybe we weren't live when all this stuff happened, but other lawsuits have been filed against them.
There's one in like the EU, right? Like full on
Yeah.
EU. And I think there's
was there one in the States too?
Yeah, I think I think it's in like the participant sign up state.
Yeah.
In the US, but and look, in Europe, this is going to be, I think, kind of hard for CD Projekt Red to defend against, because the EU has like really tight consumer protection laws. And I think, if anything, this is going to force not just publishers but also Sony and Xbox to kind of reevaluate their refund policies with games. Because I don't think it's just going to be CD Projekt Red on the hook for some of this stuff. I think CD Projekt Red is going to argue that their hands were tied by the systems that be with the platform holders, and Xbox and Sony are going to have a moment to themselves to think, well, do we need to implement something like Steam has, where you can refund any game as long as you haven't played it for more than 2 hours within the first 30 days. But I think, we haven't had a whole lot of time on this show to talk about CD Projekt Red and some of the stuff that's come out. I think one of the most interesting things was the admission that they just didn't have a really great finger on the pulse of the quality of the game on PlayStation and Xbox. And I'm going to say that, like, a year ago, before I started this job, I'd have been like, that's bullshit. Like, that's bullshit that you don't have your finger on the pulse. Now that I'm like working at a games company, it's like really realistic to see that that's a possibility, even for a big company like CD Projekt Red. Testing is really hard on consoles, because like on PC, you can give like a beta branch code to a game to some testers, and they can play the game on Steam like natively in the library. To do testing and like bug fixes for consoles, people have to have like dev kits, and you have to like outsource that work. Now, I'm not saying that that's an excuse for CD Projekt Red, but I'm just saying them saying they didn't have a good finger on the pulse just means that they weren't allocating the correct number of resources to outsourcing that labor to people, and they were probably relying heavily on external PC playtesting for a lot of feedback, just because it's easier, and you can just get volunteers to do it, so anyway, I thought that was the most interesting thing that's come out over this whole thing, them just openly being like, we didn't know.
Yeah, then I guess to tag onto that, and this is what Big Toyro is mentioning, the founder and co-chief of CD Projekt gave he kind of released a detailed apology video today. And his name is, I'm probably going to butcher it. His name is Marcin Iwinski, I believe it is. Marcin Iwinski. But I think to your point, Luke, one of the things that he mentions in that video, and I'm going to fully admit, having talked with developers, I don't have firsthand experience in kind of the QA process, but I know that like QA is a rough job in general, just because like for a lot of bugs, like it's about replicating something that may be very specific to one person's experience, and it may be difficult to replicate some of those things. So one of the comments that Iwinski made was, and I think this is to your point, Luke, as it turned out, our testing of older consoles did not show many of the issues you experienced while playing the game. As we got closer to launch, we saw significant improvements each and every day, and we realized we'd deliver in the final day 0 update. So The video was ostensibly supposed to be him taking accountability. It was him saying, "Don't blame the devs. It's kind of the upper management's fault." And I do believe that is the case. But he also basically inadvertently shoves QA under the bus in his comments. And I didn't expect like Cyberpunk 2077 to launch perfectly and bug free. Like The Witcher had tons of bugs in it when it first launched. They're massive games, and open world games are always difficult to QA test, let alone a linear game. I do think that some of the issues people encountered seem like they may have been super hard to miss. And I'm not talking about like bugs, and maybe they're broad, they fall under the broad umbrella of bugs. I'm just talking about like the general technical performance of the game.
Or like, why does my PlayStation keep inexplicably crashing?
Yeah. It's things like that I'm like, you had to know that this was an issue. And it sounds like from his comments and from what we've sort of gleaned from either off the record interviews or some of the reporting that's come out, Avinsky like straight up says they basically developed the game to run as well as it possibly could on PCs, and then tried to adjust it to consoles, which is standard. But it sounds like they were really pushing what PCs could do.
Yeah, it's like, and yeah,
and they were working with 7-year-old consoles at the time, or at the beginning of their development, not 7-year-old consoles, but by the time they launched 7-year-old consoles. And they obviously prioritized the PC experience, both in terms of how it ran, but also what they released to reviewers and the public.
Well, I think
I interrupted you, Luke.
No, I was interrupting you, so it's not a big deal. But I think like the recommended specs that they released, and I might be wrong on this, like I think they recommend having like an RTX 2080, which is like one of the highest end graphics cards that you can have, right? Like their minimum specs I think was like a 1060 or something like that, which is still like pretty high end. I don't know a ton about PC specs, but yeah, when you're like, hey, we recommend you play this at a 2080, but we're about to release it on this 7-year-old console. Like, at a point, like the porting process gets more and more difficult. Number one, the further back you try to port it, but also the number of systems that you're trying to port it to. So, also popping up here, I've got the video playing on stream. They did kind of outline a timeline of when stuff was going to be coming. So patch 1.1, patch 1.2, then this weird like gray. The thing is, I'm going to pause this because I don't know when this actually changes. There's not, and I'm sure he talks a bit more in detail about what these things are, but the roadmap itself that like people are going to see on social media doesn't give a ton of detail. Like we're going to have 2 major patches, a bunch of updates. There's going to be some free DLC, but they also delayed DLC, correct? As a part of this?
Yeah, they delayed free DLC from the beginning of 2021 to, it seems like, more mid to late 2021.
Yeah.
And they delayed the free next gen console update, which I think a lot of people, myself included, were waiting for. The roadmap, I think a lot of people have joked about this on Twitter. The roadmap looks like what you would lay out your schedule for a day in terms of your work day. Like if you're just not great at your job. Like this is basically the roadmap for a procrastinator. And I'm sure they probably have a more concrete vision of what is involved in multiple updates and improvements to Cyberpunk 2077. But part of the whole issue around the way it launched and what they've been doing since then is kind of a lack of transparency. And this doesn't really help much in terms of alleviating that distrust. Sorry, I have a lot to say on this because I wasn't able to talk with you guys about it initially. So I guess the one other thing I wanted to mention about Avinsky's comment was there I think in his interview it wasn't mentioned explicitly, but I think on Polygon's reporting on this, they found on the FAQ a comment about something that's been an ongoing issue for the development of Cyberpunk 2077, which is crunch. And so on the FAQ, it reads, the team is working to bring relevant fixes to the game without any obligatory overtime. Avoiding crunch on all of our future projects is one of our top priorities. It's worth noting that they've said in the past that they would not do crunch, and obviously have gone back on that several times over. And this is like it's a more general, less specific comment on what they plan on doing in terms of crunch than their initial comment saying we will never do it. And so they're in a difficult situation where I don't think anyone's going to believe them when it comes to this right now.
Well, and especially because a big part of crunch culture is that it isn't obligated, but there's a social pressure to do it. Like,
it's a cultural thing.
Yeah. So it's like a workplace pressure to do it because you don't want to be the first guy out the door.
Yeah, and you have to imagine that all the devs that worked mad hard on this game over years, only to see it come out in this state, are like, they have probably put a ton of pressure on themselves to deliver the best possible game and improve it as much as they possibly can.
Yeah, they're reading the comments all the same.
Yeah, I feel for the devs, honestly. I have so many questions about this game.
Yeah, we're gonna see.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to Jason Schreier, whoever kind of ends up doing the deep dive into the development of this game, because there were a lot of honestly broken promises when it came to the what we saw in terms of technical performance, but not even ignoring that, like what is in the game itself. There's a lot that's left wanting, and I think a lot that they said and have shown in previews that ultimately got cut, which is the case for any game, but in this game it seems like it was a pretty significant amount of content to meet a deadline that was set by investors and higher ups.
Right. Let's move on. Larry, next story on the list.
All right, so I forgot to attach an article to this, but these last two are quick hitters. One is Epic has acquired Rad Game Tools, and I had not heard of Rad Game Tools, but you've almost certainly experienced their their technology. The big thing they're known for is compression technology and various technologies that improve load times in video games, and that's stuff Epic has already leveraged in Fortnite. But now they have acquired Rad Game Tools, and they plan to integrate that into the Unreal technology that exists already. So, yeah, that has we're going to see that. It's one of those things that we'll probably never talk about again, but we're all going to benefit from it. As everything using Unreal experiences faster load times, which is really the hallmark of this console generation.
I'm all for it.
It's awesome.
And then the last story, if you guys are ready to move on to that, I don't know what else there is to say. This is another quick hitter. This comes from Kit Guru. The Switch outsold all other consoles combined in 2020 by Mustafa Mahmoud. And the article is pretty honest. Like, there were two things at play with this. One is just that the other two consoles were at the end of their life cycle, and the Switch is in the discouraged of their life cycle. Everyone knew the new versions of the Xbox and the PlayStation were coming, and that undoubtedly discouraged people from buying Xbox Ones and PS4s. So the Switch wasn't facing a lot of competition, but also Animal Crossing was a pretty big success. So yeah, great job, Switch. You could also find a Switch sometimes.
Yeah,
not always.
I don't know. I don't think that's necessarily the explanation, though, because hasn't the Nintendo Switch been the best-selling console every year since it's released?
I didn't realize that, actually.
It probably forgot to roll, obviously, but
yeah, it's also a
good year for Switch to have a Switch.
Yeah.
With Animal Crossing being as kind of, it dominated the gaming news cycle for a month solid, like, I don't know. Yeah. I just don't think you can chalk those numbers up exclusively to, well, people were holding out for a PS5 and and
Yeah.
Xbox Series X.
People also probably were stuck at home with their kids and wanted something for their kids to do or to do with their kids, and the Switch is a great option for that.
Yeah.
Even if you're not leaving your house, the fact that you can take it dockless to the toilet and play on the toilet is honestly still the biggest selling point for me.
Right.
Put it in
Awesome.
the box.
Well, now that we've all left you with the vision of Cody with his pants around his ankle playing a Switch on the toilet, I think that's a good way to wrap up the show, huh?
Yeah.
Also,
No doubt.
if any of our listeners want to make some fan art,
I'll commission it. I'll hang it up behind me.
He's gonna pay for a drawing of something he could easily just snap a picture of.
I want an artist rendition of it. I don't want a 1-to-1.
I just want to see dozens of various art style pictures behind you of you playing the Switch on the toilet. It'd be a dream come true.
Do it.
All right. Well, let's wrap things up, guys. Who are you? Where can people find you? What are you going to be about this week, Larry? Let's start with you.
I'm Larry. You can find me on Twitter at Still in Flux. And I mean, you'll see me tweeting about the dumpster fire. That's all. That's it. Maybe don't follow me till next week. We'll see if things get any better.
All right, Codstan.
My name is Cody. You can find me on Twitter at ProElectioneer. Unfortunately for your prompt, Luke, I am staying off of social media for the at least until the 19th, or sorry, the 20th.
Why? They're getting rid of all the bots and alt-right people, and Donald Trump's no longer on Twitter.
Yeah?
There's no better time to be on social media than right now.
Oh yeah, is that the case? Has that been your experience?
No, not at all. Not at all. I have paid to be on social media, and I hate being on social media.
Yeah.
My name is Luke. You can find me on Twitter at itishoagie, and you can also find me right here on twitch.tv/itishoagie. And I'm gonna be streaming a lot more now. I've got my new place.
Nice.
I've got my new super fast internet. I've got this new awesome room. Probably gonna. I'm almost diamond in Teamfight Tactics. I'm feeling it in that game as well. So gonna get back to streaming more regularly. So make sure you follow over here and follow me on Twitter to know when I'm going live. And we'll probably start to roll out some cool new things on that stream as well. Looking forward to it. All right. This has been PvA Radio, episode 87. We appreciate everybody tuning in with us live tonight. Big Joy Roy, thanks for chatting along with us, and Less is More stopping by as well. And for those of you who just lurked and listened, we appreciate you as well. Wherever you're listening to us, make sure you follow us and subscribe, leave a comment, review. And until next time, we love you. Goodbye.
Why, that's the second biggest monkey head I've ever seen.
I used to be an adventurer like you. Then I took an arrow in the knee.
The definition of insanity.
Would you kindly pick up that shortwave radio?